The structure of Revelation 12. Noticed the alternating focus of the text? Verse 1 is in heaven, as is verse 3, and also verse 4a, of heaven. Verse 4b transitions to the earth, cast to the earth. Verse 5b transitions to heaven, caught up unto God and to his throne. Verse 6 is on the earth, the wilderness. Verse 7 is in heaven, as is verse 8. Verse 9 transitions to the earth, cast out into the earth. Verse 10 is in heaven, a loud voice saying in heaven, which voices itself to verse 12. Verse 13 is on the earth, a summary of previous events, cast unto the earth. As is verse 14, the wilderness. Notice that we are reassured that the wilderness is on the earth, for we read of the earth helping the woman while she is in the wilderness, in verse 16a and verse 16b, twice in verse 16. The earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth. Now we will clearly mark the different sections where a particular focus is held. In heaven, verses 1 through 4a. Transitioning to and on the earth, verses 4b through 5a. Transitioning to heaven, verse 5b. On the earth, verse 6. In heaven, verses 7 through 8. Transitioning to and on the earth, verse 9. In heaven, verses 10 through 12. On the earth, verses 13 through 17. Notice the wilderness, verse 6, and the wilderness, verse 14. A place, verse 6, and her place, verse 14. Feed, verse 6, and nourished, verse 14. 1,260 days, verse 6, and a time and times and half a time, verse 14. Counting the switches in place of focus from the start until we meet up with the woman in the wilderness. 1. In heaven. 2. On the earth. 3. In heaven. 4. On the earth. And we have reached the woman in the wilderness. Beginning at the second woman in the wilderness and counting backward from 4, will we use up all the remaining places of focus? 4. On the earth, that is, the woman in the wilderness. 3. In heaven. 2. On the earth. 1. In heaven. And we have indeed used up all the places of focus. Parallel passages? It would seem so. Here is the structure of Revelation 12, that is, at least one of its structures. Notice the parallel switches in place of focus. How do we know this structure is really there? Recall verses 6 and 14. Verse 6 is, woman who fled into the wilderness to a place where she is to be fed for 1,260 days. And verse 14's, woman who flies into the wilderness to her place where she is to be nourished for a time and times and half a time. But this is not the only evidence for this parallel structure. Notice verses 4a and 9. Stars of heaven, verse 4a, and his angels, verse 9. Further notice, cast to the earth, verse 4a, and cast out into the earth, verse 9. This implies that the stars of heaven are angels. How do we know this is so? because God has made telling us so that these two things are equivalent a big deal.
Recall the chiasm, stars and candlesticks. More accurately, lampstands.
Our answer concerning stars and angels is here at the center, focus of the chiasm, making it a big deal, one revealed early on in the book of Revelation, so it must be of utmost importance. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 churches. Revelation 1:20. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches. Revelation 1:20. Stars are angels. Returning back to Revelation 12, now that we have seen the structure and proof that it exists, now to understand its contents.